Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the most iconic film cameras ever produced, and that's the Canon AE-1. So right now I'm actually shooting Fuji Industrial 400 film. It's a relatively inexpensive and good to use film. It's known for its green color cast. It doesn't produce very saturated images, but it has a decent amount of contrast, and the grain's quite fine even for a 400 speed film. So I'd highly recommend trying this film out. Canon AE-1 was released in 1976, but 5 years later, the AE-1 Program was released, which is this camera. It introduced the program mode, which was essentially an automatic shooting mode, which allowed users to simply shoot whatever they want, and the camera would meter for it by itself. Canon was actually a very innovative company at the time. This camera marked the first time a microprocessor was used in any camera, and it was also one of the first mass-market SLRs. Because of these innovations, this camera sold over 1 million copies and is still extremely popular amongst photographers these days. Before this camera, Canon had actually primarily produced rangefinder cameras, but this was one of its first SLR entries. But ever since the release of this AE-1, Canon has essentially been the market leader amongst all SLR manufacturers, even today. This camera is called the AE-1 because it belonged in Canon's amateur SLR camera line. There were several other cameras in the lineup, such as the A1, the AT1, and the AV1, but this camera stands out because it was the one which started it all. So I've been shooting this camera in manual mode, so I set the shutter speed by myself, and then in the viewfinder it tells me what aperture I should use accordingly to have the right exposure. And the reason why this is such a popular camera for beginners is that it has program mode. So you simply change the aperture to the A setting and then the shutter speed to the program setting. And then now the camera decides on all your exposure settings by itself based on its meter. One of my favorite things about this camera is actually its design. It's got this really nice two-tone look that's really reminiscent of the film shooting days, and the Canon logo on the top is actually written in this really classic, iconic font, which you don't really see in a lot of modern-day cameras. Furthermore, although it looks quite metallic, a lot of the camera is actually made of plastic parts, which does reduce the premium feel, but makes it a much lighter and enjoyable camera to use. So right now we are shooting in Sheung Wan, and it's one of my favorite places in Hong Kong to take photos. It's really vibey. There's a lot of art exhibitions, there's a lot of street art, and there's also a lot of little cafes you can check out. It's around this area, so around Tank Lane. And if you're ever in Hong Kong and you want to take some photos, this is a good place to start. swear every time we come here, something new pops up. Like this building, I'm pretty sure was not here the last time we came by. That's why I really like shooting here every single time. So this is definitely one of the best cameras ever made. And it's withstood the test of time, as it's still relevant even in 2017. If you're new to film photography, this is definitely one of the first cameras that you should check out. It's so easy to use because of its program mode, but it still gives you fully manual controls if you want it. For under $100 US, you could easily pick up one of these on eBay with a kit lens, and because of that, it's definitely a camera you should pick up.